So Steve, we're here at Vistacom talking about monitor wall considerations and site preparations that you should be doing when designing, implementing, installing a monitor wall solution like we see behind me.
We're going to put together a checklist that you can use to go out to a site, and this will be downloadable from the website, and you can grab this, and it'll help us with your application and kind of give you some ideas of some of the things you need to verify or check on while you're at your sites.
Some of the nice discussions that we've had today is going through this list and just some of the basic things that you should be asking if you're going out to a site to design a solution like this, or even just do a demo, really, and getting more information from your customer on what their needs are. First thing, monitor configurations. There's a lot surrounding that. I mean, there's like 3 specific topics, I think, as far as like how many, what size, and layouts. What are some factors around those?
So some of the configuration concerns relate to how many monitors that you want to use in your configuration, how they're mounted on the wall, 2x2, 3x1, so on and so forth, 1 large, 2 small, and also how they're laid out on that configuration, as well as what the controller capability is to feed those monitors when they're on the wall.
Right, not so much just physical layout, but how do I want my display layout? Like, what are my expectations
Right,
there?
what computer input do I want to locate where on the monitor configurations on the wall?
Right, exactly. So part of that whole layout conversation is then the physical mounting aspect of it. Can I just throw monitors like this on the wall, or?
The monitors used today are a lot lighter than they have been in the past with some of the flat panel considerations with the newer LEDs and the newer technologies than the old plasma types. So the monitor weights are much lower, but the size of the monitors have increased drastically. Today here, we have seen monitors as big as 108 inches and 95 and 50s. And it's kind of odd that there's so many new configurations and how large they are, and what people are doing with them, especially in the AV world. It is important that you understand that there is still some weight to these, and if you're going to mount monitors, several monitors on the wall in any kind of a configuration, we need to be able to disperse the load on the wall. So we need to understand how the wall is constructed. Is it a concrete wall? Is it a metal studded wall? Does it have plywood on the wall? Does it have drywall on the wall? Are we going to need plating on the wall, whether that's a metal plate or a plywood plate, to disperse the weight once we mount it to the wall? And we need to understand that from the construction side.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a huge thing as far as the safety concern, and I think what people have to be aware of is their ADA regulations as far as that in regards to how that mounting and how far away from the wall.
From the wall, right. We learned a little bit about that today. The other thing is maybe you're not going to mount it on the wall. Maybe we need a freestanding mount that you can mount the monitor to, and the monitor will sit on that freestand, and that'll be a piece of furniture of some sort that can be used in the control room in addition to the monitor.
Okay. All right. So next thing, power. Everything's going to need power. What are some recommendations, or do these need to be, can they all share one circuit, or?
So it's going to be dependent on the monitor. You got to understand that, and you need to get the specifications for your monitors. You may need a dedicated circuit, a 20 amp circuit per monitor, but you're going to really not overload the circuit. So do you need a dedicated circuit per monitor? Can you use 2 monitors per circuit, or how you're doing that? That information can be found on the data sheet for the monitor, and you should have somebody from the electrician side take care of getting that mounted into the wall for you ahead of time.
Right. So I guess it all goes back to what size and what you're looking at as far as powering.
Right. Some of the other factors when it comes to that is, your protection of that. Do you have surge protection, inline surge protection? It's a really good idea. These larger monitors tend to be a little bit more expensive. Do you need inline surge protection? The answer to that is yes. We want to make sure that you have a really good inline surge protection. The other thing is UPS. What kind of control room are you in? Are you in a control room that is a critical operation control room where if for some reason the building lost power, does the building have backup power? Do you need a UPS? Can it be a full building UPS, or a UPS that's dedicated to a specific piece of equipment or multiple pieces of equipment? So those are all considerations that you need to keep in mind when you're talking about power for these systems as well.
Okay. So from a power aspect and a video aspect, how much of that needs to be already in the wall? How much of it needs to be in place?
Well, obviously, most people care about how their control rooms look. So you're going to want to make sure you have all of this stuff in the wall ahead of time. You're not going to want to put these large monitors on the wall and go through the problems of mounting them. Just have to take them back off and then pull the power in there, pull your other AV wiring in. That's another consideration that you're going to need to take in mind. You want to make sure your power is already there. You want to make sure your surge suppression and your UPS are there before you mount your monitors. And the other thing is you want to make sure your monitor wiring is there in terms of the AV, the video feed to the monitors. You want to make sure all that stuff is hidden behind the view of the monitor, out of sight from the front side or viewing angle of the monitor.
And I guess another consideration then in that case is distance.
So distance is critical. You know, you can buy cables off the internet that are in excess of what the actual standard for the system is. Most of these devices are going to take HDMI inputs, and you can commonly go out on the internet and buy a 100-foot HDMI cable. However, we don't recommend, and by standard, we don't recommend that you go past a 25-foot HDMI cable. Typically, depending upon where you're going to locate the controller, you may be able to use a short 6-foot cable. You may extend that up to 25 feet using a direct HDMI cable. If you get past that 25 feet, you need to look at a more robust offer in terms of cable. So there's Cat6 HDMI extenders that'll get you up to about 100 feet distance between the controllers and the monitors.
Gotcha. Okay. So when we start getting into figuring out what size is going to work for me, I know there's a couple factors that relate to sizing these monitors in my control room. What are some of those that we need to be aware of?
Well, bigger is always not better. I always use the analogy of when I was a kid, I used to go to the movie theater and I'd sit right in the front row and I'd put my head up and look back and forth at the monitor. And when I was a kid sitting on the floor of the house, you know, you'd be as close as you could be. But when you're an adult, things sort of change. And viewing distance from the monitor is one of the key factors of that. How many people are trying to view the monitor? What's the distance they are from the monitor? There's actually specific calculations you can use, but can the person at that distance read the writing of a specific size on that monitor? Can they see details that they need to see that are appropriate? Are they looking at gauges? Are they looking at other information related to the application? That is based on the distance from the monitor, their viewing angle, you know, top to bottom from the monitor, so on and so forth. So that's another key critical factor when it comes to that as well.
Right, especially if my layout calls for having a quad within a cameo in a quad view. You know, those videos are going to be much smaller than at that point. It's important that I'm not too far away that I can't read what's on there.
Correct.
Okay. So one other thing that I don't know how much it comes up, but I think it's important is control room lighting. What's surrounding that?
So there's a lot to go with lighting, and lighting is a profession of its own, so I'm not going to claim to be an expert. However, I do know that a couple of key factors. You can have too much light in a control room. The best thing to do there is to have a professional light person come in and do an evaluation. The color of the light, the amount of the light, all those sort of things. How much light's on the work surface that the person's having to use. And then all of that in terms of brightness. We always try to get people to make sure the light level in the control room is adjustable. That's a starting factor. Depending upon the light types, you can use different diffusers so that the light doesn't spread out or cause problems and reflections and things like that. But in the end, you are going to have to buy a monitor that's capable of providing a picture that is bright enough to overcome the challenges of the light in the room, as well as not so bright that it's straining a person's eyes. So having the right amount of light, having the monitor that can produce the right amount of light that's usable appropriately for the application is critical.
Great. I think these are all key factors and things that need to surround designing a monorail solution, or even going into just thinking about one. So these are all things that we're going to have listed in our site survey that we'll have available for download on the website. And if anybody has any questions or needs any further information, you can reach us at support@midchest.com.